it somehow just got way worse for this Miami Heat organization, and specifically Terry Rozier, as we just got brand new information saying that he is not yet home free in his gambling investigation. We'll break down all of the new content and information that we have surrounding this topic on this episode of Heat Digest. But first, please do remember to scroll down and smash that subscribe button, as nearly 90% of you guys watching this video are not currently subscribed to the channel. We do appreciate the love and support, so thank you guys. But now let's get to it and break down how Terry Rozier is not home free just yet. Now, Terry Rozier and his involvement with this Miami Heat organization has been just abysmal from start to finish. From the time he was traded for just 2 seasons ago for Kyle Lowry and a draft pick, ever since he landed in Miami, things have been subpar, to say the absolute least. Now, the on-court performances and the overall statistical production, yes, has not been good. But then off the court, there have been even bigger issues surrounding Terry Rozier that we have covered on this channel, and in specific, it's the gambling investigation, the federal gambling investigation that he is currently going under because of speculation and rumors and the possibility that he's been involved in gambling on games he was either involved in or that his team was involved in. Now, we don't know an actual verdict yet. We don't know if he is guilty or if he is innocent. But recently, in the late stages of June, we saw this from Shams on the Pat McAfee show, one of the biggest shows in the world right now and has been for a period of time. But Shams went on to this Pat McAfee show and he said Terry Rozier as of now has been cleared. He finished the season with Miami, and there's nothing really active as of right now with him. And that was the end of the quote, one of the many quotes from Shams on the Pat McAfee show discussing Terry Rozier and the federal gambling investigation in which he was going under during this period. Now, this was not something new, as it had been going on for a period of months, but this was the biggest headline, as it was the newest idea that Terry Rozier was home free, and it seemed like the gambling investigation was cleared, it was booked, and there was nothing that they had found to produce a guilty verdict towards Terry Rozier. But based off this brand new information that we had just gotten just a few minutes ago from Barry Jackson on Twitter, who we all know and love on this channel because we cite him so very often, he goes on to tweet this. Shams said something not totally clear a month ago that led some people to believe he was reporting that the federal investigation of Terry Rozier involving gambling had stopped and the matter was closed. Pablo Torre reports this week that the federal investigation of Rozier remains ongoing and he has not been cleared. There has been no charges filed against Rozier at this time, and a previous NBA investigation uncovered no wrongdoing by the Heat point guard. So, to break this down, Barry Jackson breaks down the fact that Shams on this episode of Pat McAfee went on to announce that he had been cleared. It was kind of true, not entirely true, because yes, back in this past regular season, the federal investigation, the NBA investigation uncovered no wrongdoing, but the federal investigation never stopped. So the NBA's investigation came to a halt because they did not find any wrongdoing, but the federal investigation, non-NBA, the federal government investigation that's going on covering Terry Rozier and the possible gambling that was going on with Rozier in parts to Rozier has not been cleared just yet, which means Terry Rozier is far from home free for the time being, which is upsetting because it seemed like Terry Rozier had cleared waivers. It seemed like he was cleared of all conversations involving the gambling investigation that had been going on. But now it seems like that is far from the truth. And we had broken this down on the last week or so on this channel about how Terry Rozier and this Miami Heat organization simply have not worked. And it seems like the Miami Heat would be best to look to move Terry Rozier, and they had been trying to shop him all off season long. But due to the lack of trade market, and when I say lack thereof, I mean the non-existent, the zero zilch form of trade market that remains for Terry Rozier, makes it impossible for Miami to actually move him in a form of trade. And obviously he is currently on the last year of his deal where he's getting paid $26.5 million. That is not something the Miami Heat really want to buy out, like we've seen a lot of teams do this offseason with other big name players like Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard. And also, they don't want to flat out just cut him to free agency and eat that contract, which again would be along the same lines of a buyout. The Miami Heat are in a very, very difficult spot here, and I feel like if they weren't, they would be it would feel drastically different, because right now, as currently constructed, what they've done through this part of the offseason, the Miami Heat have like an AA plus grading for the offseason. They went out and got Norman Powell. They went out and traded the Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, these lower pieces that don't get a lot of playing time on the NBA stage, and they went out and got good complementary guys that are going to be good pieces to this Miami Heat organization, as well as what they did during the draft and with the improvements we have seen from Pelle Larsson and Khalil Ware. The Miami Heat look to be in a really, really optimistic and good spot going forward into this up-and-coming season. There's just one blemish: the inability to move Terry Rozier, and now an even bigger blemish because Terry Rozier is still under federal investigation for this gambling problem that may be an issue. Now, if the gambling thing is real and they do find, federally, they do find something involving Terry Rozier, he's going to be suspended from the NBA. He's going to be expelled from the NBA, like we have seen in the past. The last year, like we've seen this with, Jonte Porter, I believe is his name, for the Toronto Raptors. He was checking the games and purposely missing shots because he took unders on his own lines. Like, I'm not saying Rozier did something along that caliber, but if you gamble on games, regardless of the sport, if you gamble on games you are involved in, or in the sport you are involved in, you are in trouble. Like, there's no way around it. We have seen it back in baseball with Pete Rose. We've seen it in the NBA, or we've seen it in the NFL. We've seen it in the NBA. It does not fly. And if you are lucky enough to get by, you should be using a wheelbarrow to walk around. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Like, that, this is not something to joke. You are playing a professional sport for a job. This is your occupation, to play a kid's game, regardless of the sport. Basketball, baseball, football. These are games that are taught to children, and they fall in love with, and then find out they are substantially great athletes, and they say, you know what, I would love to do this for a living, and they are lucky enough and they are privileged enough to be able to do it for a living on a professional stage. With that, you are not allowed to gamble on that sport. That's just the way it works. There has to be integrity in the game in which you are playing. You cannot have for example, you cannot have, and this is totally hypothetical, it's just an example, but you cannot have the starting point guard for the Miami Heat, in this case Terry Rozier, again totally hypothetical, going out there and betting on his unders or on his overs, and he goes out there and he's forcing shots, trying to produce points, so he covers his own gambling lines. Or he goes out there like Porter did for Toronto, and he goes out there and he's just throwing up blanks, knowingly, willingly, hopefully missing these shots in hopes to pay out his own lines and pay out his own gambling bets. That is not how this works. There's integrity in the game, and all these commissions, again, regardless of the professional sport, have to keep that intact. You see it, it's a constant conversation in today's game because of how popular and how frequent and how easy it is to gamble now. It's not going to fly. And if Rozier is convicted guilty on this federal charge, in this federal investigation, he is gone, and it's going to handicap the Heat just a little bit. I'm not sure how the contracts and how all of that is going to play out if he is federally guilty. Or this is crazy. Like, this entire idea is crazy in my opinion. You are playing a professional sport. Why do you have to gamble on your team? Why do you have to gamble on your sport? I understand you have the best knowledge of it. Like, I understand you have insider information. That doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it and get away with it. Most likely, that's not going to happen. So don't do it. Go bet on the NFL. Go bet on the NHL. Go bet on the MLB. There are so many things you can bet on. You don't and you shouldn't bet on the sport you are participating in, specifically your own play, in the play that the games in which you are involved in. It cannot happen. And not only the Miami Heat, but the entirety of the professional leagues involved in American sports. And there's really no line in which some are going to be okay and some are not. All of them. It's not going to fly and it's not going to work. And if Rozier is convicted guilty in this federal investigation, I would assume that the contracts are totally voided, and they're just basically scratched, and the Miami Heat would then be rewarded that payroll back, and it would be like Rozier was never a part of the organization, because they would just give that, because it's only a one-year contract, I believe it would be relatively easy. They would just scratch the contract, basically burn it where it sits. That money would then be returned to the books of the Miami Heat, which arguably could be the best case scenario in this case, because there's no trade market for Rozier. They don't want to buy him out and then have to eat that contract, or waive him and eat that contract. There's a lot going on. But right now, Rozier, the main points, Rozier is not home free. He possibly had a very large wrongdoing, and he might have to pay the price for it. But again, that is it for this episode of Heat Digest. Let me know your overall thoughts and opinions on this entire situation and the information we broke down on this episode of Heat Digest. And I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you guys for watching.